I still remember the night I first heard them talking about it. It was late, much later than I usually stay up. My bones ache if I sit too long, and my legs aren't what they used to be, so most evenings I go to bed before 10. But that night, I couldn't sleep. Something in the air felt heavy, like the silence before a storm. I shuffled down the hallway in my old slippers, the ones with the worn-out soles. I was just going to make myself a cup of chamomile tea. Nothing fancy, just a warm sip to calm my heart. And that's when I heard them, my children, my own flesh and blood, talking in the kitchen. I paused, my hand on the wall to steady myself. Their voices were low, almost like they didn't want me to hear, but the kitchen door was cracked just enough. "Mom can't keep living here like this," my eldest David said. His voice was firm, like he'd already made up his mind. Then came my daughter, Susan, with that sharp tone she always had when she was nervous. "We need to face it. She's getting too old. She forgets things. What if she leaves the stove on? What if she falls? None of us can keep coming over here every time there's an issue." And then my youngest, Michael, my sweet boy, though not much of a boy anymore, he sighed. "I don't want to do this to her, but maybe it's time we think about a home." A home. That word hit me like a stone to the chest. They weren't talking about my home. This house I've lived in for more than 50 years, where their first steps were taken, where every birthday candle was blown out. No, they meant a nursing home. I stood frozen, listening as my heart thudded so loudly I thought for sure they'd hear it. David said, "It's not safe for her to be alone anymore." Susan added, "She needs supervision. This is what's best." And Michael, "Oh, Michael," he whispered, "but what if she hates us for it?" I don't even remember how long I stood there in that hallway. Long enough for the tea kettle to whistle in my imagination, though I never turned it on. My legs started trembling, so I tiptoed back to my room before they could notice me. When I closed the door, I sat on the edge of my bed, clutching the blanket like a frightened child. My own children, deciding where to put me, like I was some burden to be managed. I'll admit, for a moment, I felt a wave of shame wash over me. Maybe they were right. I'm 87 years old. My hands shake when I try to button my blouses. Sometimes I forget where I put my glasses, only to find them sitting on top of my head. And yes, the stairs creak louder under me than they used to. But then another feeling rose in me, stronger than the shame. Anger, not the loud, screaming kind of anger, but the quiet fire that sits deep in your chest. I've given everything to those children, every ounce of strength, every sacrifice, every late night sewing costumes for school plays or baking cookies for their class parties. And now, because I'm slower, because I'm not as sharp as I once was, they think they can just send me away? I lay down, staring at the ceiling in the dark, and I whispered to myself, "Not yet. Not me. Not like this." You see, what they didn't know, what none of them knew, was that I wasn't as helpless as they thought. I had something they'd never expected, something I'd been keeping hidden, tucked away all these years. And that secret, well, it was about to change everything. But in that moment, I just closed my eyes and let the tears roll down the sides of my face into my pillow. It's a strange kind of heartbreak, listening to your children plan your future without even asking what you want. Strange and painful. At my age, you learn to accept certain things. Wrinkles, a slower walk, a name or two slipping away before you can grab it. But nothing prepares you for the day you realize your children see you as fragile, as a problem to solve. That night, I didn't sleep much. I watched the shadows crawl across my ceiling as the moon moved past my window. And I promised myself something. I would not go quietly. If they wanted to take me from this house, they'd have to see the truth first. They'd have to discover what I had been hiding. I smiled to myself in the dark, just a little, because, oh, my sweet children, they had no idea who their mother really was. And that was just the beginning. When you're a mother, you don't just raise children. You raise little pieces of yourself, scattered into the world with their own names, their own dreams, their own tempers. And sometimes, when you look at them all grown up, you wonder, did I do enough? Did I give them the right things? Or did I give too much of myself away? I suppose I should start with David, my eldest, my first baby. Oh, I can still feel the weight of him in my arms the day I brought him home. Tiny, red-faced, crying like the world was too much for him. I was only 22 then, barely more than a girl myself, and suddenly there I was with this little soul who depended on me for everything. David has always been serious. Even as a boy, he furrowed his little brows whenever something puzzled him. He would line up his toy cars perfectly, not a single wheel out of place. And if his brother or sister came by and knocked one over, oh, he'd scold them like a little old man. "You can't just mess everything up, Susie," he'd cry. It made me laugh, though now, in his 50s, that same seriousness has hardened into something else. He's practical to the point of being cold. A successful accountant, yes, and he provides well for his family. But sometimes I think he forgets how to soften. When he said, "Mom can't keep living here like this," the other night, it wasn't cruel, but it was so final, as if I were a math problem he'd already solved. Still, David has his tender side, though he buries it. I remember when he was 8 years old and caught a butterfly in a jar. He kept it for a day, watching its wings flutter against the glass, but then he came to me with tears in his eyes. "Mom, I think it's sad in there. Can I let it go?" That's the kind of boy he was. Serious, yes, but with a heart that could ache for even the smallest creature. Sometimes I wonder if that boy is still in there, somewhere under the suit and tie. Then there's Susan, my only daughter. Oh, Susan was a storm from the very beginning. She kicked harder than both of her brothers when I carried her. And when she was born, with those big brown eyes staring right into me, I thought, this girl will move mountains someday. She was chatty, mischievous, always the one to talk her way out of trouble. If David was the serious one, Susan was the firecracker. I remember once, when she was 12, she sneaked out just to buy me flowers for Mother's Day. She didn't have much money, so she only brought home one daisy in a little paper cup, but she came in beaming like she'd brought me the whole garden. That little daisy sat on my windowsill for weeks until its petals curled inwards, and every time I saw it, I thought of her bright spirit. Now, though, she's sharp. That's the word. Her life hasn't been easy. Her marriage ended years ago, and she's been raising 2 teenagers mostly on her own. She carries that bitterness with her like a heavy bag she refuses to put down. So when she talks about me needing supervision, I can hear the exhaustion behind it. She doesn't want another responsibility. She doesn't want her old mother adding to the pile. And then, my Michael, my youngest, my baby. Even now, I can't help but smile when I think of him. He was always the gentle one, always running to hug me after school, always the peacemaker when David and Susan fought. He had this way of looking at the world with wide eyes, full of wonder, like every tree and bird and pebble was a miracle. Michael was the one who stayed closest to me as the years went on. He never moved too far, never let too many weeks pass without dropping by. And when his father passed, oh, he was my rock. He'd sit with me on the porch in silence, holding my hand, letting me grieve without words, I'll never forget one particular night with Michael. It was raining hard, the kind of rain that drums on the roof like it's trying to get inside. I'd just burned a batch of cookies, and I sat at the kitchen table crying, feeling foolish for crying over something so small. Michael, maybe 16 at the time, walked in, looked at the burnt tray, and without saying a word, he grabbed a cookie, bit into it, and said, Mom, I think you invented a new flavor. That boy made me laugh when I thought I couldn't. But even Michael, my sweet boy, spoke about a home. He didn't want to, I could hear it in his voice, but he said it anyway. And that's what hurt the most. Now, don't get me wrong, I don't tell you these things because I hate my children. No, I love them more than my own breath. But love doesn't mean blindness. At my age, you see your children clearly, their kindness, their flaws, their weariness, their hopes. Sometimes late at night, I sit with my old photo albums. The pages are worn, the corners bent. I trace their little faces with my finger, those chubby cheeks, those toothy smiles. And I think, where did those babies go? How did they turn into people who think their mother is too much to handle? And yet, I understand. They have their own lives, their own families, their own worries. They see me as fragile, as someone who needs saving from herself. What they don't see, what they've never known, is that I've been saving myself for a long, long time. The truth is, they only see what I let them see. They see my shaking hands, my slower steps, my forgetful moments. They don't see the other side of me, the part I've hidden, the part that is stronger than they imagine. And one day soon, they will. For now, I sit with the memories of their childhoods, the scraped knees, the bedtime stories, the way they once believed I could fix anything. Those days are gone, yes, but they live in me, stitched into every wrinkle on my face, every beat of my heart. And maybe, just maybe, when they discover my secret, they'll remember who I really am. When I think about my life, most of it can be measured in this house. The walls, the floors, the windows, they've seen more of me than anyone else has. More than my neighbors, more than my friends, maybe even more than my own children. If these walls could talk, oh, what stories they would tell. I moved into this house when I was just 21, newly married, full of dreams. My husband, Robert, held my hand so tightly that day we crossed the threshold. The place wasn't much back then, just a small 2-story house with peeling paint, creaky stairs, and a leaky faucet that never seemed to stop dripping. But it was ours. I remember the smell of fresh paint the day we finally finished the living room. It was spring, the windows wide open, the curtains blowing like sails as we laughed and argued over where to put the couch. Robert wanted it facing the fireplace. I wanted it facing the window. In the end, I let him win, though years later, when he was gone, I quietly moved it to the window, just the way I'd always wanted. Every corner of this house has a story. The kitchen, with its faded yellow tiles, still carries the scent of cinnamon and sugar. Oh, how many pies I baked in there. Apple in the fall, peach in the summer, pumpkin every Thanksgiving. My children would come running at the sound of the oven timer, fighting over who would get to lick the spoon. Even now, if I close my eyes, I can hear their laughter echoing against those walls. The dining room. That's where we celebrated birthdays and anniversaries. I can still see the long tablecloth, always just a little too wrinkled, and the mismatched chairs pulled from every corner of the house whenever we had company. One year, we hosted Christmas dinner, and I swear we had nearly 20 people squeezed into that room. Everyone talking at once, the clatter of dishes, the heat from the oven fogging up the windows. Chaos, yes, but the kind of chaos that warms your soul. Then there's the staircase. Oh, that staircase has heard it all. the pounding footsteps of children running late for school, the creak of Robert coming home late from work, the quiet shuffle of my own feet as I carried laundry baskets up and down for decades. These days, the stairs groan under me a little louder, as if they're tired too. But I still take them, one step at a time. I'll admit, sometimes I pause halfway to catch my breath, but I've never let them defeat me. Not yet. Upstairs, the bedrooms hold their own stories. David's old room still has a faint mark on the wall where he once tried to hang a shelf and nearly put a hole straight through the plaster. Susan's room, painted a soft pink when she was little, still has a faint flower decal peeling off near the window. And Michael's room, well, I kept some of his trophies on the shelf, even after he took the rest. He was always so proud of those soccer games. I dust them every now and then, even if no one sees them but me. But the room that holds the most memories is mine and Robert's. Our bedroom. The place where we whispered dreams into the night, where we planned our future, where we argued, where we made up, where we just lived. I still sleep on my side of the bed, though the other side has been empty for over 20 years. Sometimes, when the night is especially quiet, I turn over and stretch my hand across the sheets, pretending for just a moment that he's still there. Losing Robert was the hardest thing I've ever lived through. He wasn't just my husband, he was my partner in everything. We built this life together, brick by brick, day by day. When he passed, I thought the house might feel emptier, but strangely enough, it became my anchor. Every room carried him in some way. His laugh in the kitchen, his shoes by the door, his cologne faint on the closet air for years after. Even now, when I sit in the living room chair he always claimed as his spot, I can almost hear him clearing his throat before speaking. The children don't understand that this house isn't just walls and windows to me. It's memory, it's history, it's love and grief and everything in between. To them, it's old and unsafe, with its uneven floors and drafty windows. To me, it's my life. That's why, when I heard them talking about sending me away, it wasn't just about leaving the house. It was about leaving myself, leaving Robert, leaving all those invisible threads that tie me to who I was and who I still am. At my age, you hold on to what you can. Some people hold on to jewelry or money or family heirlooms. For me, it's this house. Not because it's valuable. Oh, if you saw the state of the pipes, you'd know it's far from perfect. But because it holds my story. And once you let go of the place that holds your story, well, what's left? Sometimes I think the children see me as trapped here, like the house is too big for me, too much work. But the truth is, the house isn't trapping me. It's keeping me connected to everything I've loved. When the sun sets, I sit on the porch with a cup of tea, and I watch the light spill across the yard. I can still see the tree Robert planted when Susan was born, now tall and strong, its branches stretching wider than the house itself. I can still see the patch of grass where David fell and scraped his knee, and I remember how I kissed it better. I can still see the swing Michael begged for, the one Robert and I strung up together, and I remember his giggles soaring higher than the swing ever could. I suppose that's why I've kept my secret hidden all these years, because it lives here too, in these walls, in this ground, in the life Robert and I built, and I wasn't ready to share it. Not yet. But I know the day is coming when they'll discover it. And maybe then they'll finally understand why I've clung to this house with everything I have. Because to me, it isn't just a house, it's home. And home, no matter how old or creaky or fragile it looks on the outside, is worth protecting. I could always tell when the air in my own home began to change. Not the weather outside, but the atmosphere between the walls where I had lived for so many years. A house can carry moods, you know. It can feel warm and welcoming when laughter lingers in the corners, or it can feel heavy, as though the walls themselves are burdened with secrets. That week, the house felt heavy. Heavier than I had ever known. It started with hushed voices in the kitchen. I would be sitting in the living room, my knitting needles clicking gently in my hands, and I'd hear the faint sound of whispers, my children's voices. I knew them well enough to tell who was speaking, even without seeing their faces. Michael's voice had that clipped sharpness to it, like he was always delivering bad news from a boardroom. Susan's voice was softer, but with a nervous edge, like she was trying not to offend anyone. And David? Oh, my sweet David. He never could keep his voice low for long. That evening, I heard the three of them in the kitchen after dinner. I wasn't supposed to notice, I suppose. They thought I had gone off to bed. But I lingered on the couch, the television humming low, pretending to watch. "Michael," Susan whispered, "don't you think she'll be hurt if we just spring it on her?" "Better to get it over with," Michael replied. His voice was brisk, efficient, like he was discussing a financial report. "The longer we drag this out, the more complicated it will become." David tried to interject. "But she's still sharp, still managing." "Don't you think—" Michael cut him off. "David, you didn't see her last week." She forgot the kettle was on, the whole kitchen filled with steam. What if it had been worse? What if she left the stove burning? I sat there, my heart thudding. Yes, it was true. I had left the kettle on. But I had caught it, hadn't I? I had cleaned it up. At 88, a small slip like that seemed forgivable. But to hear them use it as evidence against me, it felt like a stab in the back. Susan hesitated. "She's our mother, Michael. We can't just treat her like she's a burden." Michael sighed. I could almost hear the sound of him rubbing his temples, a habit he had picked up in his 40s whenever he was stressed. "Susan, do you think she's happy here alone? Don't fool yourself. A care facility would give her company, activities, people her age. It's not cruelty, it's practicality." David muttered something, too low for me to catch, but I heard the defeat in his tone. I set my knitting needles down, my fingers trembling. They thought they were planning what was best for me, but all I could hear was, "They want to send me away." The next morning, the mood at the breakfast table was strained. Susan made me tea, her smile a little too forced. Michael scrolled through his phone, barely speaking. David tried to act normal, but he was restless, shifting in his chair, tapping his fingers. I decided to play along, to act as though I hadn't overheard anything. That's a trick you learn with age. You don't always confront people right away. Sometimes it's better to sit back, watch, and let them reveal themselves. "Do you all have plans today?" I asked, sipping my tea. "Oh, just errands," Susan said quickly. Too quickly. "You know, groceries. Maybe stop by the pharmacy." Michael didn't look up from his phone. "Busy day at the office later." "I'll be gone most of the afternoon." David shrugged. "I'll be around, Mom." The three of them exchanged glances when they thought I wasn't looking. I caught it, though. At my age, you don't miss those tiny flickers of expression. They told me everything. They were planning something. That afternoon, I decided to test them a little. I went into the kitchen and deliberately asked Susan where I had left my reading glasses. She jumped up immediately. "Oh, Mom, you don't remember. They were by your chair in the living room." I smiled softly. "Ah, yes, silly me." But inside, I felt the sting. She thought my memory was failing. Maybe she believed it too. Later, Michael asked me if I had thought about future plans. The way he said it made me want to laugh and cry at the same time. Future plans. As if I was some kind of business he needed to shut down. "What do you mean by that, dear?" I asked gently. though I knew perfectly well what he meant. "Well," he said, adjusting his tie, though he wasn't wearing one, "I just think it might be good for you to explore other living arrangements, a place with support, with people who can help you more than we can." I looked him straight in the eye. "I see. You mean a nursing home?" He blinked, clearly surprised at my bluntness. "I didn't say that, Mom. But yes, something like that." The room grew quiet. Susan fiddled with her hands. David stared at the floor. I let the silence stretch. Sometimes silence is more powerful than words. Finally, I said softly, "I'll think about it." They seemed relieved, as if I had agreed. But inside, my heart ached. That night, I couldn't sleep. I lay awake, staring at the ceiling, listening to the old house creak in the dark. My children wanted to send me away. After all I had given them, years of love, sacrifices they would never even know, this was how they repaid me. But then I reminded myself, they don't know everything. They didn't know what I had hidden all these years. They didn't know the truth about the choices I had made, the quiet fortune I had tucked away, the strength that still burned inside me. No, they saw me as fragile, forgetful, a burden. But they were wrong, and one day soon they would find out just how wrong they were. The day they decided to have a family meeting was the day I realized they had already made up their minds. I could feel it the moment I walked into the living room. The air was thick, tense, and silent, almost like the calm before a storm. David had arranged the chairs in a perfect semicircle, as though we were about to negotiate a business deal rather than discuss the life of a mother who had given everything to her children. I took my usual chair by the window, my hands folded neatly in my lap. I could feel their eyes on me, the way a hawk watches prey before it strikes. Susan sat opposite me, her fingers tapping nervously against the armrest. Michael perched on the edge of his chair, his phone put aside this time, though I could sense his unease in the way he shifted from foot to foot. David, of course, acted as the leader of the group, clearing his throat as if he were about to present quarterly financials instead of addressing his mother's home life. "Mom," David began carefully, "we wanted to have this meeting to talk about your future." His words were measured, polite, but firm. That was the tone I had come to recognize, the kind that cuts deeper than shouting ever could. I nodded slowly. "Go on." Susan leaned forward, her hands clasped tightly. "We know you've lived here all your life, Mom, and we love this house. We really do. But, well, we've been worried about you, about your safety, and about whether you're managing everything by yourself." I could feel my heart tighten. It wasn't just concern in their voices, it was something else, a kind of decision-making without me. Michael's voice was gentle, hesitant. "We just want what's best for you, Mom. We don't want you to get hurt. We thought maybe a place with support would help." I took a slow breath. I wanted to look small, fragile, but I couldn't. Not yet. I had to hold on to the dignity of the woman I had always been. "I see," I said softly. "And what exactly would that place look like?" David cleared his throat, shifting in his chair. "It's a care facility, Mom. Professionals are there around the clock. Meals, activities, social opportunities, all the things you might be missing here." I smiled faintly, the kind of smile that masks something deeper, something dangerous. "So you've already decided this for me, have you?" I asked lightly, though the steel in my voice betrayed me. Susan's hands twisted in her lap. "We didn't decide, Mom. We just want to help, I repeated. I let the word linger. Help is such a polite word, isn't it? A sugarcoat for we think you're too old, too fragile, too much trouble. Michael leaned forward, softer this time. We really are worried. We don't want to force you, but... His voice trailed, unfinished. He was trying not to sound like he was pushing me, but I could hear the pressure beneath it. I sighed. Not the sigh of defeat, but the kind you make when you're gathering patience, when you're preparing for a long game. Do you think I haven't thought about my future? I asked quietly. Do you think I don't understand the risks? The kettle, the stairs, the small mishaps that happen as I grow older? They all exchanged looks. David spoke first. Mom, it's not just about the little accidents. It's about you being alone, about what happens when we're not here to check in every day. I leaned back in my chair and let out a soft chuckle. Alone? You think I've ever been alone? Their confusion made me smile inside. I've lived here with memories, with the laughter of your childhood, with the echoes of your father's voice. Alone? No, I am never alone in this house. Susan shifted uncomfortably. Mom, we're not saying you're alone in spirit, but I know, I interrupted gently. You think I need supervision. That's fine. I understand your concern, but understand this. I'm not helpless. And I have my ways of taking care of myself, even if you don't see them. Michael frowned slightly. Ways? Mom, what do you mean? I didn't answer right away. I let the moment hang, the tension thickening in the room. I could see their impatience, their frustration mounting, but I held it all in like a quiet storm. You think I haven't noticed your plans, I said finally. I overheard you one night. You thought I was asleep. You spoke about a home, about moving me somewhere you think I belong. Do you really believe I would let that happen without a word? David's face paled a little, the first crack in his composed armor. Susan's mouth opened, but no words came out. Michael's eyes widened. The gentle boy I knew now caught in a mix of guilt and surprise. I won't say I'm not scared, I continued. I am. I worry too about my steps, about my memory, about all the little things. But you've all underestimated me. You've underestimated the woman who raised you, who managed a household through sickness, through struggles, through the loss of your father. You think I'm fragile? Maybe I am. But you've never seen all I've hidden. Their faces were a mixture of shock, fear, and something else. Curiosity. That curiosity is what I wanted. That opening. You will find out, I said slowly. Not now, not in anger, but soon enough. And when you do, you will understand why this house means more to me than anything else in the world. You will understand why I have every right to remain here, on my own terms, for as long as I am able. A silence fell over the room, the kind of silence that makes the air thick and heavy, like the calm before a storm. I could feel their unease, their thoughts spinning. My children were used to being in control, used to taking charge, and now they realized there were parts of me they could not command, could not influence. That night, as I lay in bed, I thought about what I would do next. The secret I had kept hidden for decades, a secret that, if revealed at the right moment, could change everything, felt heavier in my mind. The thought of it gave me strength. They had come to this house thinking they could decide my fate, but they had underestimated the resolve of a mother. I smiled to myself in the dark. The game had begun, and I was not about to lose. It was a rainy Tuesday when the tension finally snapped, the kind of rain that hammers on the windows and makes the wooden floors moan as though the house itself is protesting. I had been reading in my favorite chair by the window, a soft blanket draped over my knees, when I heard a clatter in the kitchen. Now, I know what you're thinking. Ah, she left something out again. But no, this time, it wasn't me. David had come over unexpectedly that morning to check on things. He opened the fridge a little too forcefully, sending a jar of pickles tumbling to the floor with a crash that echoed through the house. I could hear the sound of glass breaking, my heart skipping a beat, not because I was afraid of him, oh, I'm far too old for that, but because I knew exactly how he would react. Susan came running in, her hair damp from the rain outside. "David!" "What did you do? Are you okay?" she asked, though her eyes betrayed a certain exasperation. Michael appeared behind them, a towel in his hand, shaking his head. "I told you not to slam the fridge," he muttered, crouching down to pick up the broken pieces. I slowly stood, feeling my knees protest, and made my way to the kitchen. "Is everything all right?" I asked, my voice calm, though the tension in the room made my heart race. David looked at me, embarrassed, flustered. "Mom, I didn't mean to." "I see," I said softly, letting my eyes sweep over the broken glass. "A small accident. It happens to everyone, doesn't it?" Susan's cheeks flushed. "Mom, don't make him feel worse." "He's already upset," I smiled faintly. "No one needs to feel worse, dear. We'll just clean it up together. That's what families do, isn't it?" They exchanged glances. I could see it in their eyes, the panic. The realization that I wasn't going to collapse in fear, that I wasn't going to faint or scream, that I wasn't going to let this incident justify their plans. As we cleaned up the mess, I spoke quietly, deliberately, letting each word land like a small weight. "Do you see, my children? Life is messy. Things break. People make mistakes. But that doesn't mean we give up our home or our dignity." Michael looked at me, startled by the conviction in my voice. Susan bit her lip, trying to hide the mix of guilt and frustration. David simply avoided my gaze, realizing that no amount of evidence, broken jars, minor mishaps, whatever excuses they tried to conjure, would be enough to force me out. That evening, after they left, I sat by the window again, the rain dripping softly outside. I thought about the little moment in the kitchen, how they had all underestimated me, how they had assumed that fear or embarrassment would bend me to their will. But I had spent my entire life preparing for moments like this. A mother's strength is subtle, it's quiet, it's patient. They thought I was fragile, forgetful, too old to resist. Yet here I was, standing taller in my mind than I ever had in years. I knew I needed a plan. Not a cruel plan, not a vengeful one, but a careful, deliberate plan. Something that would show them the truth. Not just the truth of my abilities, but the truth of who I really was, the part they had never seen. I began by revisiting the rooms where I had stored little treasures over the years, things that no one ever suspected I had kept. Letters, old photographs, small savings tucked away in inconspicuous spots. Things that told a story of a woman who had always been capable, always in control, always aware of the world around her, even when the children thought otherwise. I smiled softly as I handled the old letters. The edges yellowed, the ink faded. Memories came flooding back, my husband's handwriting, full of warmth and gentle humor, notes from my children when they were little, expressing love in messy, beautiful scrawl. This house, these items, these memories, they were my power, my secret. And soon, very soon, my children would see it. They would understand that I was not the fragile woman they had painted me to be. That the house, this home that they thought they could make me leave, belonged to me in every sense of the word, not because of bricks or mortar, but because of decades of life, of love, of resilience, of hidden strength. I thought about the next encounter, the next time they would come, perhaps expecting compliance, expecting submission. I would not give it to them. Instead, I would reveal just enough, a gentle nudge, a small piece of evidence, to make them rethink everything. And as I sat there, listening to the rain patter against the windows, I felt a quiet satisfaction. The storm outside mirrored the storm inside me, but I was no longer fearful. I was ready. The incident in the kitchen had been a small spark, but it was enough to ignite the realization in them. Their mother was not powerless. Their mother still had her wits, her courage, her secrets, and above all, her dignity. Yes, they would learn soon. And when they did, I imagined the look on their faces, surprise, awe, perhaps even a little regret. But more importantly, they would see me as I truly was, not just their mother, but a woman who had lived fully, loved deeply, and who still held the reins of her own life, even when they thought they were in control. I closed my eyes, feeling the warmth of the teacup in my hands, the comfort of the chair beneath me, and the gentle creak of the old house settling. This was my world, and no accident, no well-meaning intervention, no matter how sincere, would take it away from me. The storm outside would pass, as storms always do, and when it did, the calm would be mine, because I had waited, I had planned, and I had hidden a truth that they would soon have no choice but to acknowledge. The day my children discovered my secret began like any other, with rain lightly tapping against the window panes, a familiar rhythm that always calmed me. I had gone about my morning routines as usual, making tea, tidying the kitchen, running my fingers over the edges of the photographs lining the mantel. Nothing seemed unusual. Nothing, that is, until the knock on the door came. I had been expecting them, though I did not know they would arrive together, a silent coalition determined to help me. David, Susan, and Michael appeared on the porch, each with an air of polite urgency. I opened the door, smiling softly, as though the day were ordinary. "Good morning, Mom," David said, his voice tight. "We, thought we'd stop by to check on you." I nodded, stepping aside to let them in. "Of course, come in. The rain hasn't been too bad, has it?" Susan wrung her hands nervously. "No, Mom." "Not really. But we wanted to make sure you're safe." That's all. Michael gave a small, reassuring smile. "We just want to help, Mom. That's all." I let them settle into the living room, the tension thick in the air. They didn't notice, but I had prepared for this moment for years. They thought they were walking into a fragile old woman's home, a woman easily convinced to leave her own house. What they didn't know was that I had something carefully tucked away, something they would never expect. It began innocently enough. I suggested we have tea in the kitchen. As I poured the water from the kettle, I let my hands tremble just slightly, a tiny calculated slip that drew their attention. "Oh dear," I murmured. I almost dropped the kettle again. David immediately leaned forward, alarm in his eyes. "Mom, be careful." Susan clutched my hand, anxiety flickering across her face. "Mom, really, maybe this is exactly why—" I smiled softly, interrupting her gently. There. It's fine. I've got it under control." As they relaxed slightly, thinking they were witnessing frailty, I moved toward the old wooden cabinet in the corner, the one they had never really noticed, tucked behind the heavy curtains. I opened it slowly, deliberately. Their eyes followed my every motion. Inside were boxes, small, unassuming boxes filled with letters, photographs, and documents that chronicled decades of careful planning, careful saving, careful life-building. I pulled one out and handed it to David. "What's this?" he asked, eyebrows furrowed. I let a soft chuckle escape me. "Open it, dear." You'll see David hesitated, glancing at Michael and Susan. Slowly, He lifted the lid. Inside were neatly stacked envelopes, each labeled meticulously by year and by purpose. There were deeds, insurance documents, letters to the bank, even a few old contracts. And then, tucked at the bottom, was a small leather-bound journal. Susan leaned closer. "Mom, what is all this?" I sipped my tea calmly. "It's everything I've saved, managed, and planned over the years. You see, your mother has been careful all along. Perhaps you thought I was fragile, that I was helpless. But I've been preparing, not for today, not for tomorrow, but for the moment when my children might doubt my judgment." Michael reached for the journal, turning the pages slowly. His eyes widened as he read the careful entries detailing my finances, my decisions, and even subtle notes about the house. Everything I had done to ensure I could remain independent no matter what. David's jaw tightened. "Mom, you've been hiding all of this?" I set my cup down. "Not hiding, dear. Protecting. I never wanted you to worry. I never wanted you to feel burdened by decisions that are my responsibility, not yours. But now you see." Susan's hands trembled slightly as she held a letter addressed to me, written in her father's familiar handwriting. "Mom, all these years, how did you manage this alone?" I smiled gently, my eyes misting. "With patience, dear. With quiet determination. With the knowledge that some things in life must be kept sacred until the right moment." The room fell silent for several minutes. They weren't angry, not entirely. They weren't relieved either. They were somewhere in between, caught between admiration and regret. They had assumed they could dictate my future, but now they realized that I had always been one step ahead. I rose slowly and walked toward the window, watching the rain streak across the glass. "You've all grown up thinking that strength is always loud and obvious. That power is measured in commands and decisions. But strength, my dears, strength can be quiet, it can be patient, it can be hidden in the folds of daily life, in small acts that go unnoticed until the moment they must be revealed." Michael finally spoke, his voice low and reverent. "Mom, we never knew. We thought you were fragile, that you needed us to protect you. But all this, you've done it all yourself." I turned to face them, my expression soft but unwavering. "Yes, I have. And now that you see it, perhaps you will understand why I cannot and will not leave this house unless it is on my own terms." Susan wiped a tear from her cheek. "Mom, I'm sorry. I was wrong. We all were." David nodded slowly. "We thought we were helping, but we didn't realize how much you've always managed, how capable you are." I reached out and took each of their hands, one by one. "You see, my dears, independence is not just about what you can do physically. It's about knowing who you are, knowing what you've built, and having the courage to protect it. This house, this life, these memories, they belong to me, and so does my choice." For the first time in weeks, perhaps months, the atmosphere in the room felt light. The tension lifted, replaced by a quiet respect. They had come with intentions they thought were righteous, but they left with the realization that their mother was not to be underestimated. I poured us all more tea, and we sat together, sipping quietly, letting the moment settle. It wasn't victory in a loud, dramatic sense. It was the quiet triumph of truth, patience, and preparation. And as I looked at their faces, at the awe, the understanding, the slight guilt, I felt a warmth that only comes when those you love truly see you for who you are. Yes, the storm had passed. And yes, the secret I had kept hidden for so long had changed everything. But more than that, it had reminded us all of a simple truth. Strength, love, and dignity are not always visible. Sometimes they are hidden, quietly waiting for the right moment to shine. After the revelation of my secret, the atmosphere in the house shifted in ways I hadn't fully anticipated. The tension that had hovered for weeks, thick as fog, finally lifted. But what replaced it was not simply relief. It was something subtler, more profound: respect, understanding, and a quiet reconciliation. That morning, I woke to sunlight filtering through the curtains, painting the room in golden hues. The familiar creak of the old floors welcomed me as I walked to the kitchen. I prepared breakfast as I always did, humming softly, the aroma of toast and brewed tea filling the house. It felt right, steady, mine. David was the first to appear. He came in cautiously, as though approaching a fragile treasure he wasn't sure he deserved to touch. "Mom," he said quietly, I want to apologize for doubting you, for thinking you weren't capable of handling things on your own." I smiled gently, gesturing toward the chair by the table. "Sit, David. Apologies are only meaningful if they come with understanding. And I think you've begun to understand, haven't you?" He nodded, taking a seat, his eyes softening. "Yes, Mom." We all did. Susan arrived soon after, holding a basket of laundry, her expression a mixture of humility and warmth. "Mom," she began, voice slightly trembling, "I was wrong to think of you as needing us to protect you. I see now that strength isn't always loud, isn't always visible. You've shown us that." I reached out and squeezed her hand. "Strength comes in many forms, dear. Sometimes in whispers, sometimes in patience, sometimes in hidden deeds. And sometimes it's about waiting for the right moment to show it." Michael lingered in the doorway, hesitant. I gestured for him to join us. He moved closer, his eyes full of emotion. "Mom, I don't know how we all missed it. How we thought we could take charge of your life when you've been managing it perfectly all along. I respect you more than ever." I felt a surge of warmth. This was the moment I had hoped for. Not to be praised, not to assert dominance, but to have my children see me as I truly was. Not fragile, not helpless, but capable, wise, and deserving of autonomy. We spent the morning together, quietly at first. The dishes were washed, the table cleared, and the room settled into a comfortable rhythm. There were no harsh words, no guilt-laden accusations, just the gentle hum of life continuing, infused now with a newfound understanding. Later, I led them to the cabinet where I had kept my secret. I allowed them to examine the letters, documents, and the journal at their leisure. Each piece they touched seemed to carry the weight of years, of decisions carefully made, of independence fiercely protected, of love silently extended. David picked up a stack of documents, leafing through them with reverent hands. "Mom," he said softly, all these years, you've managed everything so carefully, and we never even realized." "I know," I replied, a small smile playing on my lips. "Sometimes, my dears, it's better to work quietly, to preserve dignity, and to trust that the people you love will see the truth when the time comes." Susan hugged me tightly, and even Michael joined. A small, awkward hug that carried so much meaning. It was not just physical warmth. It was an acknowledgement, a recognition, a silent promise to respect my autonomy. The rest of the day was spent walking through the house together, talking, laughing, and revisiting memories. I showed them the old photographs, the marks on the walls where their childhood milestones were etched, the small spots where their father had left reminders of his love and care. Each corner of the house seemed alive with history, alive with the echoes of our family's life, and I could see in their eyes that they finally understood why I had fought to stay. By late afternoon, the rain had stopped, and the sunlight streamed through the windows, painting the walls with warmth. I sat on the porch with my children around me, sipping tea. There was a gentle breeze that carried the scent of wet grass and earth, the air crisp and refreshing. For the first time in weeks, I felt completely at peace. "Mom," David said, finally breaking the comfortable silence, "we want to support you. Not decide for you, not control your life, but support you in whatever way you choose." Susan nodded. "Yes, Mom, we'll help, but we'll follow your lead." Always Michael smiled, a genuine warmth that made my heart swell. "You've shown us how strong you are, Mom, how capable. We're proud of you." I leaned back in my chair, taking in their words. This was more than reconciliation, it was recognition. They had learned in the quietest, most profound way that independence and strength cannot be measured by age, by appearance, or by small mistakes. They had learned that respect is earned through patience, through preparation, and through life itself. That evening, as they prepared to leave, David lingered at the door. "Mom, I think I finally understand. You've always been in control, always managing everything, and now I see why this house is so important to you." I nodded, my eyes glistening with emotion. "Yes, dear. This house isn't just wood and stone. It's memory, it's love, it's life itself, and it belongs to me in every sense." Susan hugged me one last time. "We'll never underestimate you again, Mom." Never Michael waved softly from the porch. "We'll be back soon, Mom. And we'll help when you want us to." After they left, I closed the door and walked slowly through the house, the silence now comforting instead of tense. I paused by the cabinet, running my fingers over the leather-bound journal. My secret had been revealed, but it had not diminished me. If anything, it had strengthened the bond between us. I poured myself a final cup of tea and sat by the window, watching the sunset streak the sky with pinks and golds. The house felt alive, filled with warmth, memories, and a sense of accomplishment. I had stood my ground, protected my dignity, and most importantly, shown my children the truth of who I was. At my age, you learn many things. You learn that life is fragile, yes, but that strength and love can endure beyond expectation. You learn that independence is a treasure worth guarding, and that respect is not demanded but earned. And you learn that family, when guided by understanding and patience, can rise above misunderstandings to see the heart of the person they love. I sipped my tea, the warmth spreading through me, and thought to myself, this house, these walls, these memories, they are mine, and so am I, in every sense. And now my children see it too. The storm had passed. The secret had been revealed. And the house, once again, felt like home. I often sit by this window, the same one I've looked out of for decades, and I think about the life I've lived, the choices I've made, the people I've loved, and the storms I've weathered. At my age, reflection becomes both a pastime and a teacher. And if there's one thing I've learned, it's that life has a way of showing you the truth. Sometimes gently, sometimes with a loud crash that shakes you to your core. When my children first began talking about sending me away, I won't lie, my heart ached. I felt misunderstood, underestimated, and if I'm being honest, a little invisible. But that feeling, painful as it was, reminded me of something essential. Strength is not always visible, and dignity is something you guard with quiet courage, even when the world tries to convince you otherwise. I learned that patience is more powerful than confrontation. In those weeks of tension, I could have argued, yelled, or tried to force my children to see reason, but I didn't. I waited, I observed. I let the moment come when the truth, my secret, my independence, my lifetime of preparation, could be revealed naturally, in a way that they could finally understand. Life, at its core, is about timing. I've also realized that family, no matter how close, can sometimes forget to truly see each other. My children were raised in this house. They played in these rooms, learned lessons here, and grew into the adults I am proud of. Yet they assumed I was fragile, that I needed their guidance in ways I did not. They forgot that I had been managing, planning, and protecting them as well as myself all along. It made me think about the quiet work we do in life, the unseen sacrifices, the hidden efforts, the small acts of courage that are never applauded. People often measure capability by what they can see: physical strength, loud decisions, or visible accomplishments. But the true measure of strength is often invisible, quietly woven into the fabric of everyday life. It's in the letters we write, the small savings we keep, the love we pour into a home or a family without expecting recognition. I also learned that respect cannot be demanded, only earned. Not from strangers, not from colleagues, but from those who know you most intimately. My children had to see, truly see, who I was before they understood the weight of their actions. And when they did, the shift was profound. It was not about control or submission. It was about mutual recognition, about seeing each other as whole, capable individuals, even as roles reverse with age. Sitting here, watching the sunset, paint the sky in shades of gold and pink, I am grateful for the life I've had. I am grateful for the house that witnessed my laughter, my tears, and every small milestone in between. I am grateful for the children who, despite their missteps, eventually saw me clearly and with the respect I had always deserved. And I am grateful for the quiet lessons life has taught me, lessons that no one can take away. Life, I have found, is not about avoiding conflict. It's about navigating it with wisdom and courage. It's about choosing your battles, knowing when to fight and when to wait. It's about recognizing that sometimes the strongest move is not the loudest or most immediate, but the one that honors both your dignity and your vision for your life. I think of all the mornings I've spent pouring tea, folding laundry, and watching the seasons change outside this window. They seemed ordinary at the time, almost mundane, but in retrospect, each moment was part of a tapestry that built my independence, my confidence, and my inner strength. Life is composed of these seemingly small moments. Treasure them, protect them, learn from them. I want my children, and anyone who listens to this story, to understand that aging is not weakness. Growing older is not a sign that your life is over or that your voice no longer matters. It is an opportunity, perhaps the most profound one, to demonstrate that the years of experience, patience, and love have prepared you to face anything, and to remind others that age does not diminish wisdom or value, it amplifies it. I hope that my story teaches others that independence and respect are not things given freely. They are fought for, preserved, and sometimes revealed only when the moment is right. You do not have to prove yourself to the world, only to those whose opinions matter most. And when those closest to you doubt your capability, remember, quiet strength is a power few understand, but it is the most enduring kind. There is a beauty in reflection that cannot be overstated. I often close my eyes and see my children running through the halls as little ones, hear my husband's laughter echoing in the living room, and feel the warmth of countless meals shared, holidays celebrated, and nights spent in quiet conversation. This house, these memories, these relationships, they are the essence of a life fully lived. And they have taught me that dignity, courage, and love are intertwined, inseparable, and everlasting. So if there's one piece of advice I can offer from a lifetime of experience, it is this. Cherish your independence. Guard your dignity. Protect your secrets, the ones that hold your strength, until the right moment. Teach your children, your friends, your family, that respect is earned through patience, wisdom, and consistency. And above all, never underestimate the quiet power of a life lived fully, thoughtfully, and with courage. As I sit here, the golden light fading into evening, I feel a deep sense of peace. My children understand me now, not just as their mother, but as a woman who has lived her life with intention, care, and resilience. And in that understanding, we have found a new kind of closeness, a renewed bond built on respect and love. Life is long, my dears, and it is unpredictable. But if you remember one thing from my story, let it be this. Your strength is yours to protect. Your dignity is yours to uphold. And the life you've built, no matter how ordinary it may seem to others, is worth every bit of care, courage, and devotion you can give it. Sit by your window, reflect on your journey, and never forget the power of patience, love, and quiet determination. Because one day, someone will see it, and when they do, the truth will shine brighter than any misunderstanding ever could.